Hi, this is Debbie Hodge from Get It Scrapped with Lesson 1 in Design Principles for the Scrapbook page. In this class, I have 12 lessons that show you how to make a scrapbook page. And we break it down into the simplest and most useful elements for making the scrapbook page, design principles which will apply to scrapbook page parts. I wouldn't make anything beautiful, anything stable without some kind of scaffolding or structure, and this class lays out that structure, and it lays it out in easy to understand pieces with examples that let you get to work and apply things right away. The work of making a scrapbook page entails first capturing the viewer's attention with whatever you've made, then controlling the viewer's eye to move through the page. And as they do that, they're going to take in information that you're conveying, and they're going to feel something. So your goals are to get the viewer's attention, control the eye's movement, convey information, and evoke emotion. Here's how that played out on my page, Grandpa's Girl. The photo of my aunts and my niece singing Hey Hey Good Looking catches the eye for many reasons: appeal, placement, matting, and we're going to get into all of that in the future lessons. The tendency of a viewer's eye is to move diagonally down to the cluster of photos at bottom center, and then up to top right, and then back around. Information is conveyed via journaling, photos, and the motifs on the page. The viewer of this page comes to understand that my niece adored her grandfather, and he loved spending time with her. To remember him, she learned one of his favorite songs and found people to help her remember him with the joyful and quirky singing of this song on the front lawn of his farm. Emotion is evoked by the story, the contrast of seeing my father in days past with his granddaughter, and then seeing her without him, offering her own original tribute to him and his part in her life. The lessons in this class are organized around first the design principles. I'm going to lay out what each of them are: emphasis, repetition, alignment, balance, contrast, and flow. And then the basic parts of a scrapbook page: photos, journaling, title, embellishments, and the canvas that it sits on. I'll talk about all of those and how you can apply each of those design principles to each of those parts, and the goal is to yield a scrapbook page. I'm going to quickly go over each of the design principles and each of the page parts in this first lesson, and then in the following lessons we'll dig into each one in more depth. So the first design principle that we'll be using is emphasis, and this refers to how different parts of your page should have different levels of importance. And the way you present all those pieces should make that hierarchy apparent to the viewer. It's your job to create emphasis and to create a hierarchy, a visual hierarchy. On this page, the larger photo of my son's the focal point, and it's made so by its larger size, its positioning, its engaging content, its embellishment with that little talk bubble. So the viewer begins by looking at this photo and then takes in the title, the smaller shot, and the journaling. Another design principle is repetition. Repeating elements on your scrapbook page will add unity. And you can repeat things like colors, shapes, textures, motifs, and patterns. Note, though, that repetition without some kind of variety is going to be dull. So your challenge is to think about how to change something while keeping it the same. How to add a circle that's a little bit different than the other circle. And in that sense, a button is a different circle than a circular tag. So take a look at the repetitions of color on the punch bowl here. There's a visual triangle of oranges, so orange is repeated but in different ways. There's a title that's in orange, there's a book plate in orange, and there's a circle burst spot up here at top left in orange. And they guide the eye around the page, and they add repetitions of orange but in different ways. There's another triangle of repeating greens. There's repetitions in texture with the pom-pom fringe and the crocheted doily. And even see those repetitions of splatters behind the cluster of elements at the bottom of the page. The principle of alignment. Alignments provide order. They provide margins and meaningful white space on your page. They let you group and organize your elements. And you can even create visual connections between elements that aren't near one another using alignment. I want you to note that this doesn't mean that everything on your page needs to be perfectly lined up. Rather, you should consider when to align and when to break from alignment. Leaving Seattle is a page with several obvious alignments. And when we get to the lesson that focuses on alignment, you'll learn about less obvious alignments and what they can do for your page designs. I mean, here notice how the bottom of the photos are all aligned. They all sit on the same base, which organizes them. They have the same sized gutters between them, and that is white space. and but they have different heights. And then notice that block of journaling above the third photo. Notice how if you think of that journaling as a block, as having a shape, the left side aligns with the left side of the photo and the right side aligns with the right side of the photo. That is an alignment. The design principle of balance. The parts of your scrapbook page should be distributed to create visual balance, a sense of balance that you see, not that you can actually experience physically. We never want to feel like the pieces in a layout are going to topple one another. There's a lot to talk about when we get to this lesson on balance, including addressing what might be your first question, well, why not just balance things symmetrically? For now, take a look at this page, Geocache, and notice how that strip of photos along the left balances the much larger landscape-oriented photo and map behind it. While this larger photo and the map fill more physical space, the smaller strip can balance it because it sits higher up and has more complexity. It visually sees right, feels right, and we'll talk more about how to get this good feeling in a later lesson. Contrast. There should be obvious visual differences between the elements on your page. Contrast is going to draw the viewer's eye and add interest and variety. Let's take a look at a few of the contrasts on H. The green and blue pattern paper is bold, and it pops against the tan cardstock behind it. The white text print is yet another paper with enough difference in color and value to pop against the layers beneath. There are also differences in scale on the page that make it interesting. An oversized butterfly rub-on is juxtaposed with small birds on the journaling card and in the cluster at bottom right. All of these differences draw the eye and make the page pleasing and easily understood and viewed. Flow is the final design principle that we'll be using, and this refers to how the viewer's eye moves through the layout. The flow will begin with the element that has the most emphasis on the page. You can arrange and choose other elements to move the eye through the rest of the page and then end up back at that first dominant element. If you can get the viewer to take in your page in a particular order, then you can show them the story as you'd like it understood. You're telling your story, you're conveying information, and you can even evoke emotion. When we get to the lesson on flow, which could also be called movement, we'll talk about a variety of flow patterns and how to create those patterns. On Archer, the flow starts with this very compelling focal point photo of my son with a bow and arrow. And notice how there's a small visual triangle of orange elements around that photo, which gives it even more emphasis. Because of the content of the photo, the way his arrow is pointing and that wooden embellishment arrow, your eye moves to the left, to the photo right across from that, and then down to the photo below. And notice that that photo below is coupled with another embellishment cluster that has the oranges and the yellows in it. From there, the eye moves over to the title and the journaling, which is really coupled with the photo, and it moves right back on up to the photo, and the eye can keep circling through the page. Now let's talk about page parts. Not every page has every part, but most pages have most parts. Photos, journaling, embellishment, title, and canvas. Knowing this framework gives you touch points as you put things together and make your photo, supply, and design choices. And it's also a great start for getting new ideas for your pages. On this page of unpacking while arriving at my mom's house, you'll see that there are indeed 2 photos. There is journaling, typed down along the bottom. There are embellishments, a flower, a little boy, an owl, and some ephemera. There's a title, We Are Here, and the canvas is a craft cardstock. The photos are probably the reason for your page, though not always. So the first concern that you'll have is usually selecting the photos that you're going to put on the page. You'll have decisions to make about how many photos to use, whether to feature 1 or 2 over the others, how to crop them, and how to place them on the page. The answers to these questions usually aren't too difficult, and I'll show you how to approach them. Heroes of the Day is about my sons helping us get into the house right before we were supposed to leave for our California vacation, and we had locked ourselves out. They went through the basement window. I didn't have great photos, but I really want to tell this story. I've got a photo of my kids right at the basement window where they crawled in, and then a photo of them greeting us at the door. So since they were poor quality, I removed most of the color and did some digital sharpening. And then to really reinforce the story and the point of why being locked out at this moment was so important, I included 2 smaller and very colorful photos of us at Disney later. The journaling on your page can range from a few specifics about who's in the photos, where you were and when, to a detailed story like the one I just described on Heroes of the Day. Start making your pages by understanding how much journaling you'll want to include and understanding that you need to leave the appropriate space for it. As you move forward, this knowledge will factor into how you choose other elements, what you emphasize and how you emphasize it, and where everything gets placed, and even how you'll render your journaling. Will it be handwritten? Will it be typed on a tag, journaling strips? I made work is play, knowing that really what I just wanted to do was show my mom's love of mowing her lawn, how much she enjoys being outdoors, and how much she enjoys having a really nice yard and gardens. And so I knew I didn't need much journaling, so I was able to just type it onto that piece of patterned paper and just let it. It just takes 2 lines, and I included the date right there too. Embellishments, the decorations for your scrapbook pages. Your primary tasks when it comes to adding the embellishments to your page are 1, choosing them, and 2, placing them. These bits are great for adding repetitions and for creating flow, and they're just plain fun to work with and can deepen your theme. The embellishments on Senior Party add lots of interest to this 2-page layout, and they support the story's subject. There's an owl. This is all about a senior graduation party, so an owl represents knowledge, the butterfly represents change, and then there's just obvious cake, because it's a party, and a doily, it's a party, it's a graduation party. Embellishments don't have to be themed, though. Versatile and meaning-neutral bits like buttons, ribbon, gems, and brads make great decorative touches, and you're going to see that they let you get those repetitions with variety onto your page. Titles. Most of my pages have titles. Not all of them, but most of them. I like how it cues the viewer to my page subject. I like how it gives me an opportunity to immediately set tone or put a twist on the story. There are lots of questions to ask and answer about your title when you begin a scrapbook page. How important is your title going to be? Will it be clever or straightforward? How much space is it going to take up? Will you use it as a major design element, incorporating colors and textures that will be repeated elsewhere, lead the eye and set tone? You don't have to know your title absolutely when you start, but you need to know if you'll have one and how much space you think you'll give it. I often mull over title possibilities in my mind as I make a page, refining them as I go along. The title on Awesome Boy is mostly straightforward. Yes, he's a boy, but there were lots of possible adjectives I could have used. Outdoor boy, all boy, fishing boy. I settled on awesome, though, because I really do think this boy is remarkable in many ways. I often use contrast in my title, as I've done here. Awesome is in all caps and stamped to pattern paper, while boy is lowercase and oversized and in chipboard with lots of dimension. The roughed up chipboard supports the outdoor theme, and this title ends up being the dominant element on the page. The canvas is the piece of paper or digital background upon which you build your page. For me, thinking about the canvas means thinking about how I will fill it and what role it's going to play in the page's design. Just take a look back at some of the layouts we've covered in this lesson, and that gives you an idea of the different ways there are to approach the canvas. You can totally fill it up, or you can incorporate white space. You can organize things in a grid or rows with lots of alignments, or you can layer, or you can scatter. You can use pattern paper for your background, or cardstock, narrow mats, or fun edging techniques. And we're going to talk about all this in Lesson 12. Notice here that the elements on Hero of the Day, the whole canvas is blocked out, and each part of the block is filled up. On We Are Here, the elements are arranged in a band, a horizontal band across the page, and in Punchbowl, we've got a cluster with generous white space. That's it for Lesson 1. In Lesson 2, we'll cover that first design principle, emphasis.